Welcome to the Belly Dance Stories podcast, a multimedia production directed by Alexandra Molina and Valerie Molinari.
You will hear inspiring conversations and learn about the ways belly dance has become a powerful channel of transformation in people's lives. Welcome everybody to this next conversation. Belly Dance Stories is really excited to have Valerie talking about producing 101. So this conversation is mostly going to be a masterclass style of a talk, of a podcast. And we're going to be talking about a guide to how to produce belly dance events, how to begin thinking about it. I want to say producing belly dance events, the pre-production is like 90%, maybe not, maybe 80% of the real work. And I know you're going to talk more about that.
We're going to talk about all of that.
All of this really juicy stuff. So if you're interested in producing events, if you're interested in a leadership role within the belly dance world, this conversation is for you. So Val, take us through what is producing and what are the first steps of producing a belly dance event?
Okay, let's start with why belly dance events are important also in our community. So belly dance events are going to be a power source. They're going to be empowering our sense of community. They provide visibility to artists. They provide a network space where people connect, okay? An event, it's a shared experience where people collectively gather because they either have a purpose or something that they had in common, right? When you go to a concert of an artist, you know that everybody that is going to that concert is interested in the music of that artist. So you're going to have like-minded people gather in one place. And when you're producing this type of experience, means that your role is to prepare a space where people are going to gather and they're going to have an experience together. Producing events is not a solo act. It's not like a soloist performance. And this is one of the major mistakes that a lot of new producers make, is that you really need a strong sense of community to be able to be successful in an event. And you need a community to be a successful event. And it's all a collective effort. Like when you're thinking about an event, the audience plays an important role. The teachers play an important role. The performers, the tech people that are working in the theater or the space that you're renting play an important role. Like an event, even though sometimes we feel like it's just happens in a short period of time, requires of a big staff to be able to do it. It doesn't matter if it's a 1-day intensive or a 3-day intensive, it requires a teamwork. And those are a couple of the things that we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so I think one of the main problems that I see in a lot of new producers is not understanding that you actually need a big team, right? And we get excited and we're like, okay, I want to do this. And you got to be realistic sometimes that just like preparing for a dance career, you need to prepare yourself to be a producer. Like sometimes I feel that when we go, let's say a theatrical show like Belly Dance Stories, like people go, they purchase the tickets, they sit down and they see a 40-minute, 50-minute show that seems like every dancer did their solo. So it seems like the event, I just need to tell everybody to get to this place and show up with their costume and that's it. That's what the event. No, it's so much more work actually to make also people compromise their time to come and show up, right? That's one of the difficulties and one of the most challenging things that we producers face is how I can create a shared experience where everybody wants to come. How attractive I can create this event where people are gonna be saying, oh, you know what, my Saturday that I am free, that is my day off, I'm gonna do it. This Saturday, I'm gonna pick it just to go here and give you my most valuable thing, which is time. Time. So we're gonna be talking about how can we do that correctly. And I wanna start talking also a little bit about different type of producers, because I think this is gonna help a lot of people understand how to position themselves as a producer. When I started dancing years ago, a lot of the producers were vendors, like Johara. We have Little Egypt in Texas. And vendors, I feel, are one of my favorite producers because they're like a neutral, they play neutral roles in our community, right? So a vendor like Johara was a vendor that used to sell the belly dance costumes here in Miami. So we were so blessed to have her here, where we will just go there, get coin belts for our classes, get our troop costumes for our classes. So therefore, Johara had a huge advantage, which means that she knew every dancer from her community, not only from Florida, but from other places. So when she decided to start doing her events, she had already had a huge network of people that she knew that they had a great relationship with her, because she was really good at also of keeping good relationship with people. So when she decided to host events, people gravitated to her. Okay. You also have the teachers or studios that decide to do a bigger event because they're trying to get their brand out there. And the event, they do it almost like an effort to get more people of the community involved, okay? And it also pushes the brand of the studio. That's another type of producer that we have. We also have like the solo tour artist, let's say like Mercedes Nieto, that is a dancer that has traveled a lot abroad, and then she has her Budapest Fest. She also has a lot of things in her advantage, which means that she has toured the world. So she has developed this global audience that when she gets to do an event, she already has her audience developed. And then you also have students and local teachers that decide that they are excited to bring an artist to do an event, okay? I don't want to say that they have a disadvantage, but they do have other challenges on their journey. Because if you're a student, then you also, depending on like how do you work with your dance career, you probably know a lot of teachers, and you're also like that neutral type of figure in the community. But then you also depend on the success of the event. A lot is going to depend on the audience of those teachers and those studios. Okay, so you got to start thinking about strategies on how I can have the audience or the business of this person come to attend to my event, because I don't necessarily have personal relationship with each one of those students. Okay, so if you're a student or somebody that is not as active in the community, before doing an event, you have to realize what is the position and what are the relationships that you have and what are the relationships that you need to develop in order to have a good outcome of your event. So those are a couple of the things that are very important.
I think it's very important, yes, to figure out where do you fall in that category in those titles, or what kind of producer are you? Are you a teacher? Are you a vendor? And maybe if you are one of those and you need to expand your network in your community, seek for another willing producer who is not the category that you are. So let's say you're a teacher and you need support to make this event that you're envisioning bigger, or to make it happen financially, or whatever the question is. Seek for another willing producer that maybe is a vendor and not the same thing that you are. Maybe that'll work, maybe that won't.
That's a great point. For example, our dear Esmeralda, she is what we consider a godmother of a couple of events, some type of ambassador. So that means that producer understood that in order for them to get a global impact and have more people coming to their event from other places, they needed a global figure. So they hire Esmeralda also as part of the team of the event, in order for her to be the person that becomes like an ambassador. This is the person that it's gonna kind of help me out. And those are great collaborations coming back to community that you can create, and you should think about it. Because the thing is that if you don't have those relationships developed, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. You just have to position yourself realistically, okay? And I say this because sometimes we get excited and we think that because we're bringing a popular dancer or event, it's gonna be a success. And
that's not guaranteed.
That is not guaranteed, okay? And I'm saying this because I see a lot of people failing with this. We think that because a dancer has a lot of visibility online or on her Instagram, we're gonna have full classes. And then we blame it on our community and we start getting bitter. It's not. That is why the role of the producer is so important, because people are gonna come depending on the relationship that they have with that producer. So a great artist doesn't guarantee the success. It's important. It's very, very, very important. But also with that, I'm gonna tap into this thing about like, if you are a student, right, or a teacher in your community, you also have to make sure that the artists that you're bringing, or the artist of the performer that you were trying to showcase, either it's in a workshop or an intensive, matches your brand, okay? Just because you get the opportunity to bring an artist that is very popular, if you don't have any type of relationship artistically, it doesn't really make too much sense, right? Imagine me bringing a dancer like Zoe Jakes or Rachel Bryce. My people, they will not come. They will not come because I'm not a tribal dancer. I'm not working in this field. So that's why it's so important that also when you pick your artist, don't convince yourself that because the person is popular, it's gonna do something for you. Like also like the role that you play, your personal brand has to kind of like match.
The producer is the gateway in between both worlds.
In between.
Yeah, we have to remember that is really important, because what your students and your following sees is that reflection of who you're bringing, and vice versa. The person you're bringing, whoever attends that event, is a reflection of you. So if you are the gate that is open and that makes sense, everything is going to be able to flow. The water is going to flow from one side to the other.
Mm-hmm. And then picking very well the opportunities too. Like, I get a lot of people that tell me, oh, I'm coming to Miami. Would you like to host a workshop with me? Like, I get very flattered. I'm very excited, but I also has to be realistic. Does this artist is coming in a time where I think I can create a successful event? It's my audience will be interested in that artist, because it doesn't make sense for me to put this amount of effort because this artist is popular if my people is not gonna really show up. It's not good for the artist, it's not good for myself.
I want to ask you a question. How do producers define their purpose?
Okay. That's one of the first things that we have to do before everything. It's like defining your purpose with your event, okay? So this is a fascinating part, because if you understand the why are you doing the event, a lot of the things that you're gonna be and a lot of the decisions that you're gonna be making after, they're gonna make so much sense, and you have to be extra mega clear of why are you producing the event, okay? And events could be very meaningful. They can have a great impact, but you gotta also approach this with humility and clarity, okay? So you wanna produce an event and you have a purpose, right? The purpose should be like, how do you want, you should ask yourself this, what do you want people to obtain and how do you want people to feel before, during, and after the event? Like, you gotta think in that chronology of time, right? I want my people most of the time to feel excited and curious before coming to my event. Once they're in the event, I want them to feel either inspired, empowered, energized. And after the event is done, like, I want them to feel in peace, empowered to create, and like ready to probably go to another event. You get what I'm saying?
And how did you find that through your experience of producing the whys of why you produce an event?
Okay, so when I started doing my biggest project, which was the Lebanese Love Affair, I had a purpose and a goal with Simon. And I was helping Simon to bring visibility to the artists that were teaching, performing, and had careers in Lebanon. Like, we had that goal. I went to Lebanon to meet these artists, to use my social media platform to give visibility to them, because I felt that there was something very special happening there, that the Lebanese community was the biggest diaspora in the United States, and that in the belly dance world, there was like a lot of emphasis in Egypt, and that we had a very limited perspective of the Arab world. So that was the main thing.
So what I'm seeing, sorry to interrupt you, but what I'm seeing is that first you had a background and an education in that field, in that specific part of the world, country, and you also had a connection with a person because you've been building up that community with them for years. So therefore, something popped up that you had a mission, or you found it.
I found a mission,
But you found the mission along the way while you were learning
researching.
and researching, because that's what you enjoyed and that was your desire. But little did you know that you would do this, right?
I have no intention. And I always say that the mission of the Lebanese Law Affair found me. Okay, because yes, I was curious about it. Mm-hmm. I never saw myself as a producer. And I was really passionate about learning something new, which is interesting because
which is part of your aesthetic, though, you know, but part of your personality, because you know yourself very well.
Yeah, and I actually went to Lebanon after having a breakup with an Egyptian teacher, so I was seeking for other styles. I wanted something new. I was in a process of rebranding myself too, now that I think about it. And then he called me and told me, we're preparing a tour for Pierre Haddad. You should host him. And like, he really convinced me. He sold that so good. how he is.
Simon's a good salesman, and he's amazing. He's a very good mentor too. He also knows how to grab certain things and pass them on to people. Yeah. So what I was trying to get to was that a lot of the talk about finding a purpose, finding a passion, I think people forget to talk about it gets found when we are doing what we really like, no matter, we don't listen to the outside world, but it happens when we listen to our inner world and our inner dynamic, and we take action to learn more about it.
Yes. And that research takes time. And I want to say that when I started like really focusing more like on the Lebanese stylization and the Lebanese artists, I started to go really deep in it. Like I started to also study the figure of Ibrahim Farah here in the United States. And I was teaching this. I was touring with this material, and I was sharing it online. All of this to say that when I put my first flyer of the Love Affair, I have already educated my audience about Lebanese style and make them curious.
It has been building up.
It had built in, but that took years. It's not that I just came and like, because on the, if you don't really pay attention, it looked like I brought this artist. I only had one video of him and it was a success. No, I was at the moment teaching at Belly to Apps, having like 20 students per class. Every Tuesday and every Thursday, I was giving them that information. I was teaching and touring with Lebanese style information. And I had already kind of like put that online, creating that interest on people.
So your vision was being built up for many years.
For many years.
And developed and refined.
And how do you say it? Digested. And like, so when the opportunity came, it was perfect. It was the perfect formula because I had already had that soil. Okay? So it's very important that when you're defining your purpose, coming back to what we talk, where are you artistically in that moment and time? If you're a dancer artist that wants to jump into production, okay? And this is very, 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 very important. And then, for example, in my case with the Love Affair, I do wanted it to bring visibility to these artists. So therefore, when I prepare my marketing plan, it was about telling their story. I didn't put myself in the flyer. It was just Valerie Molina represent, but it was all about Pierre in that moment. So I had to take Pierre's biography, ask him about everything, and little by little, week by week, tell something different about him. And I was very aware that people didn't knew anything about him and that I had to kind of like make people interested. And I did this, I think, in a period of four months, which is not something that I really advise to people, but because I was so obsessed with it, like I will wake up and do the post and like you could tell in the way I was writing things that I was really putting a lot of effort on how people were gonna perceive him and how I was gonna build this image of him. And why the event was important, because we were gonna learn about a new style and about a new artist that were going through a lot of difficult, I even when I was sharing the information about, like, one of the things that I was more fascinated is that these artists in Lebanon, they have gone through all this political war situation and they kept dancing. So this is something that I kept telling people, like, dance for these people, it's like, it's a resilience act, and like.
So for people out there, new to the production world, find your purpose, or
Find your vision.
Find your vision, and how you find your vision, look back at your trajectory, look back at your history.
Exactly.
See where you shine and where you feel the best, where you feel the happiest, where you feel the most passionate, and it might surprise you. Definitely journal, I would say, right?
You need to write all of this.
Write all of it down. Write down all that journey.
Write everything.
And while you're doing that, develop your community and your teaching, because that is your target audience. That is going to align with your target audience, right? These are all the things before an event.
Before even starting
before even
think about an event, you're like, okay, I want to do an event. What will be my vision? And
considering, this is how to consider if you are ready to produce an event.
Exactly. And you want to organize that information, and you want to also ask yourself, okay, who's going to be the perfect audience for this? In my case, I knew that I wanted it to tap to the Arab audiences that I was performing to, and my dance community, especially like the ones that were more into Egyptian style. I knew that because they were already doing Arab dance styles, they were going to be interested. And something that you want to consider too is that we do have tools with the social media, but you cannot rely completely on it, okay? So when you're thinking about targeting your audience, you gotta also think about the physical work of targeting your audience, okay? All of this for you to start considering also what I call the workload, okay? So depending on the magnitude and the size of the event that you wanna do, it's also gonna depend the workload and the amount of work that you have to do, okay? If you're only planning a 3-4 hours workshop for an international artist, then that's easy because you just need just a venue and tell the people of your community, and that's it. If that event includes a theatrical show or a hafla, then you have to consider that you have to be selling two stuff, right? You gotta be selling the workshops, and then you gotta start selling a theatrical show. So that means that you have to reach to more people, okay? And then if you're doing a 3-day event, okay, I want you people to really think about this. A 3-day event means that people are gonna take a full weekend to come to your event.
That's a lot of time and money invested.
Exactly.
For people who live everyday lives and are not full-time dancers, perspective is very important when you're considering the workload.
The workload, okay? This is the type of thing that, for example, when I brought Pierre the first time, it was a 2-day event. I had like 3 workshops with him only. When I noticed that my workshops were full, only then I said, okay, I'm gonna do a mini show. And how did I did it? In a place called DAF Studio, where I only invested $200 for the rental to see, because I have not done a theatrical show by myself. So I was not gonna take the financial risk of renting a big theater when I have never produced or host an event in Miami. I have produced events in Puerto Rico, but I have never done it in Miami. Why do I say this? Is because sometimes we get super excited. We get these big theater spaces, and then they're empty because you know it. It's very difficult to fill out theaters and spaces. You could have, and I've seen it, that you have everybody from the community performing in the show, and the theater is empty. Like, part of the role of the producer is to make sure those seats are full with people, okay? Because then you might think that you're doing an event that could empower the community, but have you danced for an empty theater or an empty show?
Kind of, yeah.
Like, I don't like it. I feel like
There's more mental work a dancer has to do, but because
Exactly.
belly dance is very gravitated towards the audience's energy, and not all of us are professional dancers that with or without the audience we perform. You know, we don't learn that with or without energy. So we don't want to put our dancers or our performers in that situation.
in that situation. So it's about you also thinking realistically, you know, okay, am I going to be able to fill out this space in this amount of time that I have to do the promotion? And any performing venue, it's great.
This is where stoicism really gets
Yeah.
interesting is important because we have to see it for what it is, the situation and where we are as producers. And if we cannot guarantee that many people in the audience. We never can.
You never can.
You never know. As much as we work hard to tell the story of what we are going to bring and the producing, as much as we tell the story of the event and who we're bringing, it's not guaranteed how many people are going to come.
Show up, yeah.
And show up. So we do have to at least, start small. I think that's a really big,
For me,
important tip.
That's one of the best advices that I can tell to people. It's like, if you want to do this giant, mega, glamorous event,
You don't need it.
you don't need it, but start little by little. Like when I started my first love affair, like I did it like that. One artist, and then when I realized that that place was too small for me, then I went to Flamingo Theater next year. And then I upgraded it. Okay.
And the important part is that everybody around you feels good and has a good experience. That's number one. Not the size of the venue, not the size of the whole event. It is how people are going to feel.
Exactly.
Like you said, before, during, and after.
Before, during, and after. You can create a small event that has a powerful impact. And you can create a huge event that has zero impact in your community. Okay? So, like, I feel sometimes producers, we think that we have to, repeat the same structure of another event, right? But it's not. Like, really try to think about where are you in your journey, what's your purpose, and keep in mind also that things takes time to develop. Be patient, okay? One of the things that I mentioned this is because you gotta be clear about your financial reality. And as another reason, another purpose of me doing this is that I see people taking this huge financial risk and burning out. And it doesn't need to be that way. You can be responsible with the money that you're having. What is going to be your budget? Understand also the pricing. How are you going to be pricing your event? Where are you going to be taking the money? And when you're doing your budget, also have an emergency fund. Meaning that sometimes things can get extra expensive. You're going to have extra expenses, okay? The biggest lesson is that you don't do an event without money. You don't do that. Before you put the flyer with the artist, you need to have already the money for the salary of the artist, for the venue, and to cover everything. Because you can't rely completely on the sales. This is very important. Very, very important. Okay? Marketing material that costs money. Flyers, banners, t-shirts, goodie bags, all of that, okay? And very important, the time commitment. So once you already know the event that you want to do, you pick the structure, either is it going to be a 3-day intensive, 2-day intensive, you gotta be realistic on how much time you're going to need to develop that plan. Okay, you gotta think about when I'm gonna be starting putting the event out there, how long it's gonna take people to register for the event. Okay, once it gets closer to the event, what are the things that usually I have to promote the most? Let's say in a 3-day workshop event, usually you want to sell first the workshops, right? That's what people is going to commit first. You do your early bird price. You want to try to sell the big package so you get the big money in, okay? Then you start selling the individual classes, right? The closer it gets to the event. And then you put a lot of effort in those last 2 months in the shows, because people are not going to buy tickets for a show 6 months in advance, okay? So you got to consider that you need to track a time and plan your schedule according to all those things that you have to sell in that period of time, okay? Now, let's go to a part that I feel it's very important and very useful for new producers or even producers, okay? Like I mentioned, the solo act producer is a failed act. If you're the producer that is doing the marketing, the stage manager, opening, front desk, doing all, that you're gonna go nuts, just gonna go crazy, and people will say that you are disorganized and not prepared, okay? Because it's way too many things to do, okay? So we have the producer, which is the visionary, the decision maker, and the financial risk taker, okay? Then you have another position that sometimes, in a lot of situations, in our case with Valiant Stories, is the director. So the director is the creative lead, right? That takes care of the artistic aspects. For many of us, we are producer and director at the same time, okay? In the role of Valiant Stories, we do the same thing. We are the ones that are taking care of the production, money, but at the same time, we curate the artistic experience, okay? Then you have the stage or event manager. This role, I wish I could see it more often in 3-day or 2-day event, okay? That manager is that on the ground coordinator that is making sure everything is running on time, okay? In my case with the Love Affair, I have a co-producer that is Loaya. But when the event starts, Loaya is also the manager, or we have another girl that is working as a manager. That person is gonna come first. It's gonna make sure that the music is set up. It's gonna make sure that the microphones are working, that the registration table is set, okay? And that person keeps tracks of time. Okay, time. The workshop needs to start at this time. And if we start 20 minutes late, it had to go 20 minutes late, not 25 minutes late. And it's gonna make sure like everything is running accordingly, okay? You need your marketing and promotions team. Very important. You can have a virtual assistant that it could help you on everything. But nowadays, you really need a lot of people, especially the closer it gets to the event, that this is when you actually have to be a little bit more wild with the promotion. It's difficult that if you're the producer and at the same person taking care of marketing, it's too much. We know this, right?
We know this.
We know this. In my case now in Puerto Rico, like we had one of our dear friends, Maria Cristina, that whenever Loaya and I we couldn't post, we were like, Maria Cristina, I need you to do this video and blah, 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 and send this message in the WhatsApp group, and we were covered, okay? Performers and instructors, they're an important part of your production. You want to make sure they are informed about everything that that is happening, and you want to make sure you're working with people that follow instructions. So important.
Important pause right there.
Important pause. Okay. I have worked. Well, I've been very fortunate that a lot of the teachers that I have worked, I never had issues. But keep in mind that if you're picking an instructor that doesn't follow the rules, that doesn't get to the venue, is not ready on time, you're going to have a hard time. Okay. So before hiring an instructor, I'm looking at you in the eyes very seriously. Okay. Really try to get as much as information of them. Really. How do they work? Do they follow the rules? Or they're gonna get to the airport on time so they don't miss the flight? These things happen. Yes, okay? So you wanna be responsible with that choice. And when it comes to the performers of the shows, you wanna work with people that follow the timelines, okay? If not, like, it's a team effort. If people are not coming to the theater on time, if they're not bringing you the music on time, like, the flow doesn't work, okay? And then you have the tech and the venue staff. You want to be working with a venue that answers the phone, that when you tell them I need this, they're available and they don't ignore you, because that can be very stressful, okay? And your volunteers, so important. Don't let this part to the last minute, okay? Get people that are interested in working, that are gonna give you the hand, that they have a car in case you need extra help, in case you need to get something from here, something from there, get them. And also, very important, have a meeting with them prior and during the event. You want to have your volunteers involved. You don't wait. I don't like to wait for the same day of the event to do that meeting. I like to do it before so they get an idea, even if it's just to bring the dancers to the stage, right? Even if it's just that. But for example, when we do Belly and Stories and we need that volunteer for the stage to bring the dancers from the dressing room to the stage, I'm gonna get the volunteer that everybody knows. I'm not gonna get a person that nobody knows, because then that person is gonna go bananas when they're trying to look for a certain dancer and they don't know them, okay? So this is very important that you keep those roles, because each one of them you can give it to somebody, okay? Or understand, like I said, that these are part of the responsibilities that you need to cover.
This is a big part of the gravity of a leadership role in producing. It's like you are creating a small business and you are going to do the hiring process. You are going to do the vetting process. It is a mini company that you are building for this little amount of time, but it takes a lot of time. So producing is a huge, heavy leadership role.
Exactly. And you have to be on top of all these people, right? That's something that we forget, is that none of this is gonna work if you don't give the accurate instructions.
And also, this is not gonna work if the people who you are working with, wait, hold on, let me backtrack here. This is not going to work if you don't have that stability and grounding within you and your own person. You know, if you are not ready emotionally, physically, and psychologically, you won't be ready to pass these efforts along to your team. Therefore, it trickles down to the attendees and the people who you've hired, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So understand that a lot of this is going to depend on you. Like, all these people are depending on you. So you have to be clear on your communication skills, on your demands, and it's a lot. Like, this is very important, that you need to understand that when you're dealing with an event, you have to be a people's person.
And though this sounds overwhelming right now, remember what we spoke about in the beginning of the podcast, everybody, that this stuff comes with years of you developing everything else in your community, whether you're a vendor, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a musician, whoever you are, whatever role you play in the art form that you're working with, in this case, specifically belly dance, right? You are developing all of these skills to get to this other place in the belly dance industry. This is one aspect of the many aspects of the belly dance industry.
Exactly. And all of this that we have discussed into for now, so far, is pre-production.
It's all pre-production. We're not even there.
We haven't even get to the planning stage.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's get to the planning stage.
Planning stage. Let's start with budgeting and funding. You gotta understand your cost. You gotta make a list of how much is gonna be the venue, how much is the salary of the instructor, how much is the ticket, how much is absolutely everything.
It's worth it.
Everything needs to be in a spreadsheet, okay? Thinking about marketing, thinking about places where the venue, places where the artist is gonna stay, which is usually one of the things that when I was doing my event, for example, in February and March, it was high season in Miami. So hotels were like more expensive. And I say all of this for you to consider also about the next topic, which is going to be time and venue, is that you got to consider all of that when it comes to cost, okay? Depending on the time of the year that you do the event, cost of productions are going to change too, okay? And your revenue streams. You want to start playing with your numbers. If I have this amount of costs, what should be the ticket sale price, my full package price, how many people do I need to cover, so you can start a sale plan. The sale plan is essential for you not to just go on negative, okay? And very important, sometimes you can predict consumers' behavior, but sometimes you can't. Okay.
Predict. Yeah, we can't predict that.
Predict, okay? So for producers that are teachers, that are used to understand how the behavior of their students or their clients, we do have a more experience. But when you don't have that experience, it could be nerve-wracking, right? That you put something and you have this idea that people are going to purchase right away. It's not necessarily the case, okay? And you gotta also understand, how do you manage that information? If I put the information out there and it's been 2, 3, 4, 5 months and people are not selling, the tickets are not selling, the workshop is not, like, you gotta start thinking about plan B. Like, don't crash. If it's not selling and you need to cancel, go ahead and cancel. Or if it's not selling and you gotta do some extra work to sell, then you gotta do that extra sell. You can't stay there and be like, people are not interested, people are not supportive. They don't have to be supportive. All of that, you have to work it out, okay? Venue selection and dates. Venues are very important. That's one of the first things that you wanna book, okay? And sometimes the venue can affect your dates, because you like that venue and you love that venue, and then they tell you that date that you have envisioned, they don't have it available. Then you gotta really consider, okay, this is the perfect venue for me? Can I be flexible with time? Okay? Most of the time, me in my case, I'm very, like, for example, Flamingo Theater, like, I have to do the love affair there. So the first thing that I book is them. Like, immediately I confirm with the artist, my next call is to them. And I immediately book it. Like, immediately. Okay? So this is very important. Okay? With venue selection, you want to consider size, location, accessibility. Okay? And the tech support that you're going to be there. If you're picking a venue that doesn't have music, that doesn't have the stage that you need, that you have to put the rest, and probably it's cheaper, understand that if you need to put the stage, the lighting, all of this is going to be extra money, and there's going to be more things for you to organize.
More time spent.
More time spent.
Time is valuable.
Okay, so I am a big believer of picking venues that they have everything, that I don't have to bring anything. I don't even like to bring even a table. I like the event to have the table, you know. Planning, scheduling, and timeline. When am I gonna start announcing the event? When does the early bird ends? When I'm gonna start selling the ticket sales? All of that, you need to have it in consideration in your planning. Consistency during this process is essential for the effectiveness and the impact of the promotion of the event. Like an event, you cannot pop it out in and out, in and out, in and out. Regardless, this is going to be happening in 1 year. You got to keep that promotion consistent during that year, because you know what? If not, that creates questions in the people.
Yeah, let me ask you a quick question here. How long? It's a string of questions. If you have a 1-day event, how much time before that do you need to start announcing? How much time do you think a 1-day event?
1 month.
1 month.
One month. You could do it in 1 month.
To start announcing?
To start announcing, and even putting it out there.
Okay, to me, 1 month is not enough time. To me, I would say like 3 months for 1 month.
The minimum.
Like a ratio. What I'm trying to find for those listening are ratios, right? If you have a 1 month event, the ratio, if you have a 1-day event, that would take maybe 3 months to be safe to start announcing. If you have a 2-day event, how long do you think?
6 months.
6
minimum.
months.
Yeah.
6 months minimum, right? What about a 3-day event?
1 year
3 to 4
minimum.
A 3 to 4 day event is a 1 year
minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Just to give people some concrete timelines.
Exactly.
You know,
for us, and it also depends on that also. And in Spanish we say el poder de convocatoria. How do you say that in English? Poder de convocatoria. A lot has to do with the power of that person to bring people to them. That is a talent. Some people, they have the power to say, oh, I'm gonna do this, and people show up. Okay? That's your talent. That's your power.
I think that develops over time, though. But let's say for new producers,
exactly, that is something that you want to be developing as a producer, right? To have that power. For new producers, definitely 1 month is not gonna be enough. Okay, especially if you're bringing out a new event. It's just like that Pierre story that I said. You gotta tell the story of your event little by little. Make people start getting more familiar with the concept. Make them curious, excited. Okay, this has to be part of also of the marketing and the aesthetic of the marketing. Like I have to feel the excitement in your marketing campaign.
Right. So if it's a 1-day event, and let's say they need 2 to 3 months to start announcing it, you actually need, before that, add 3 extra months before that to get everything planned.
Marketing plan.
Yeah.
To do that network event on the ground, meaning that if I'm going to do this event, or let's think about us with the Shimmy Social. We want to do this networking belly dance event, Shimmy Social. That means that 3 months in advance, I want to start going to other women's events so I can connect with other collaborators. And therefore, once I drop it, I have already established certain communications. And I have already spoken to other leaders that could help me out.
Yeah, and you've gained several steps towards your success once by doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah, this overlaps a little bit with the production stage, doesn't it?
It is production stage.
Okay.
It is pre-production. You have pre-production, then we are in planning stage.
You have pre-production, then you have pre-production.
And then you have planning stage that you want to make sure that you have these timelines. That network thing is so important when it comes to producing events. And my advice is that if you do this as a regular thing in your life, you don't have to think and plan it that much. You see what I'm saying?
Right, because eventually you gain a structure that is that you've tried trial and error. That's not to say that there will be some mishaps here and there. Maybe things won't work out as you wanted them to. But that's to say you have a skeleton, you have a base.
Exactly.
Because it's worked.
For example, if you're a student that attends regularly to different dance events and you keep yourself active in the community, then you know that when you're doing your event, now you're going to go with a purpose. Now you're going to go to the same events that you go with the flyers, and you make sure you use this time to talk to people about their event in person. Very important, okay? Let's talk about production phase, okay? Once we bring that project to life, something that I highly recommend is to have a schedule of the activities and a schedule for your team. Okay, you need to have a timeline, meaning at this time I'm gonna wake up, this person is gonna bring the artist, is gonna take them to eat. At the same time, this other person is opening the studio. Like, be very specific about every little thing that you need to do for those 2 or 3 days or the day of your event, okay? Even if it's a theatrical production, make sure that you have your timeline written down. At this time, I'm going to be doing the tech rehearsal. At this time, I'm going to be doing rehearsals with the dancers. Like, for example, I love Mystic Night. The last time that we went there, we were rehearsing the same day of the production. And Yesenia had a person running the rehearsal, and we had specifically 5 minutes. So in order for her to run that tech rehearsal so everybody could have their time on stage, everybody has to be specifically at that time, and they only have 5 minutes to run it once, okay? Tech rehearsals are very important for the flow of the event and the show. So you really wanna make sure that you add them. But you gotta keep in mind that if you wanna rehearse in another day, that's an extra expense. So my recommendation is that if you have a theatrical show and you wanna use theatrical shows, usually the theater rents for 4 hours, okay? You wanna make sure that you time manage that show correctly, right? Because that means that if you have a 2-hour show, doing a 2-hour rehearsal in a period of 4 hours, it's gonna be impossible. You're gonna have to add some extra rental fees. So you can rent the studio in another day and run the rehearsal. But if you have a 4-hour theater rental and your production takes about 1 hour, which is not something very common, and we should definitely make sure that we keep our shows a little bit more concise and shorter, because I think it's the best for the audience. Which also takes me to the subject about venues too. Theaters are places meant for art. This is where Shakespeare used to present their pieces. They're places that are sacred for art, where people are just gonna sit down and they're not gonna eat. They don't have any way to interact, okay? Therefore, you gotta be mindful that when you're presenting a theatrical show for the audience and you have 30 people, 25 numbers, that's a lot of time for people to be sitting down watching a show. And another thing that you want to consider is that the theater, because the performers are so far away from the audience, requires very skilled performers to keep the audience engaged and entertained. Okay? And like I said, theaters are great spaces, but if you're planning to have a longer show that is gonna take a good 2 hours, my recommendation is to look for more interactive venues, like a place where you can offer drinks to people, a place where people can actually order food while they're watching the show. And this is one of the reasons why I do the Love Affair in Flamingo Theater, is because I get full bar access and food. So therefore I can do like a 2 hour show, but I know people are gonna be fed, they're gonna be drinking, they can get up. So that helps me to keep my audience comfortable. And this is very important, that you need to keep this in your mind, that if you're doing a theater show, the theater, like more than 90 minutes is a lot for the audience. It's a lot, especially nowadays. Okay, so keep that in mind. And crisis management, common last minute problems. What could happen? You have performers that don't arrive, problems with the music. They can happen. Okay, so you gotta be ready to just flow. Sometimes you're gonna have to improvise and relax. Also, like, sometimes things are not gonna go accordingly how you expected. That's why you wanna be extra organized. That's why you don't wait until the last minute for people to give you the music. You wanna make sure that you have the music a month in advance, so you can make sure the music is running well, that there's no MP3, MP4 issues, and that you can do your roll down. Because how are you managing a show and how are you managing the performers is gonna impact a lot the delivery of those performers. If I am arriving and I'm a performer in a show, and when I get there, there's still not a roll down, I'm already anxious. Because that means that the show is not organized. That means that it's gonna start late. And usually I see it. If I arrive to the show and I don't know what's my lineup on the show, we're late. Okay? 30 minutes late, it's good. More than 30 minutes, it's like... But you gotta also think that people also took their time to be ready there on time, so that when you are delaying your productions, like, you're also delaying the people's time. Okay, so you gotta try to run everything as smooth, as on time as possible. And that's why little things like asking for people's music, do it ahead of time. Do it ahead of time, do it ahead of time, do it ahead of time. So you could have it, so that day of the show, you bring your USB or your computer and you already make sure that everything is running perfectly fine. Okay? Very important. Now let's talk about the post-production, because that's an essential part that is as important as the pre-production. Okay? Once the event finishes, this is the moment where actually you could perceive the impact that has the event. I feel that a very tangible way that we get to perceive how an event went is when you see that Facebook or Instagram wall full of people giving gratitude to the event, right? If an event passed and there's not a community engagement, something happened. You know, that people didn't felt the need to communicate how extraordinary this event was. Okay, so you wanna make sure that once the event finishes, you keep people in such a high. The way you finish that event, the way you say bye to the audience at the end, the way you actually thanks people at the event, everybody that is involved, your volunteers, everything. You gotta make sure that people don't leave there like, oh my God, I'm not gonna volunteer here again. You wanna make sure that people leave re-energized, okay? Because on that post-production, that past the event, is when you're actually gonna get people engaged to come to the next one, okay? And then you gotta take some time to do that thank you email post-production. It was so interesting because with the love affair, well, the event was running in Puerto Rico. We were taking the picture, and Loaya had already had like day 1, day 2, day 3 graphics. So once the event finished, we start promoting, okay, this is what happened on day 1, this is what happened on day 2, this is what happened in the restaurant. And we were so hyped with the promotion that people were like, are you guys still in the event?
They didn't know it was still happening.
It was still happening, yeah. So you want to keep that engagement, because that post-promotion, it's very important for the future. If you want to get sponsors, you also want to have that documentation clear and clean over there. And then the people, you want to create that sense of FOMO, right? The people that didn't make it to the event, you want them to feel like, oh, I wanted it to be there. And you want to keep their interest, and that's how you continue expanding and growing your audience. And something that I find very important to do, that I do it, and we do it all the time, is that financial reconciliation. That means that once the event finishes, you sit down with your team and we talk about the things that work and that didn't work. It's very important to type that down and put it on a list, okay? This didn't work, this did work, let's watch the numbers. This was a big number, this can reduce it, this workshop didn't work, this thing, we could do it better, this needed more promotion, I got this negative feedback from this, and blah, 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 blah. You need to have that moment, as tired as you are, but as closer to the event that you're still clear of what happened, to discuss, okay, what did I learn? What did it work? What do I need to improve? And then you start ready to use all the information to create your next event better, okay? And then coming back to that promotion for future events, you wanna start filing and organizing the information of the event, okay? Meaning that you need to do a file with the pictures that you receive from people from the event, where you put participants, where you put people taking classes, where you get feedback from the people. This is something that is very useful when you're doing an event. Take a moment to get feedback for the people. Another file where you put the people that were involved of the show, pictures of the audience in the show, pictures of the performers in the show, and you wanna kind of like organize that information. That is gonna be very useful for when you started doing the promotions and the marketing for the next event. You already have everything in file, okay? So let me promote the workshops. I'm gonna use the pictures of the workshops last year. Boom. Let me promote the show. Let me use a picture from the previous show. And if you think about everything that we discussed, you realize that the event is not necessary the 2 hours that you are in the class or the 3 days. Like, there's a lot of time that happens between that pre-production, production, bringing it to life, and then the post-production, which is a part that I feel not too many people, we forget about it, because yes, we finish very drained after, but you gotta keep in mind, producers, that once the event finish, you're still in your momentum. You don't want to drop it. You want to use that post-production. It's so important to make sure you're keeping an impact. Like if people are sharing your event and they're giving feedback, testimonials online, take screenshots of all of that. That you could use it for your future marketing information, but you want to document, and you want to make sure that once the event finishes, the echo of the event is kept resonating in your community. And that's how you know that you created an impact. When you get your community giving back to you with gratitude, and when there's no better promotion than the same people that attended to the event to be talking so highly and so good about it, okay? So things that I want producers to understand is that you need to have a strong sense of community when it comes to producing an event. And I want to highlight something, Alex, is that when I wrote the blog that we have, it's called Why Are Belly Dance Events Struggling, that I have it here in the blog of Belly Dance Stories, I mentioned the distinction between being part of a scene and being part of a community, and how sometimes our belly dance world functions more like a scene, meaning that people show up in events looking for a visibility, and we're not necessarily working collectively to make sure we're growing this industry together. I want to highlight that this is a comment and a conversation that I had with Diana Soto. She was the one that really defined those two things for me. And then that's when I realized that, when you're part of a community, you have to show up in a certain way, right? And so for us producers, we need to understand that our role when we're producing an event, we could have different type of purposes, like highlighting or giving visibility to the dancers of Lebanon, or providing a stage, a more democratic stage, like places like Orlando Belly Dance Convention. I think that they're perfect for it, where everybody get an opportunity to perform. Students, professional, they're all mingling together. Is that when you're producing an event, right? Your main role is to provide a shared experience where everybody can feel energized, excited to continue with your journey. You want to give visibility to your vendors. You want to give visibility to your dancers. But therefore, you have to also play as a community member. So it's not all about you, about being the main producer that is rescuing the community. Like, that is not it. Like, you are not going to be able to do a successful event if you don't acknowledge also the community and the members of the community that you belong to. And I'm going to finish this podcast with this amazing advice given by me.
Fantastic. I'm ready to hear it.
Is that I feel, and this has been a strategy that I have done kind of like organically, because I do like to share with people, is that I've been able to relate very well with my colleagues and my peeps, is because I tell them that I value their work and I describe it to them. So I'll tell a person like Amara, I love the work that you do in Miami-Dade College, because you guys are bringing dance in an academic field, and you guys are like really continuing a huge legacy. And I make sure that my colleagues know that I appreciate the work that they're doing, not by saying, oh, you're great. No. It's like, you gotta make sure people know that their work is valued and it's visible, and you're able to break it down with words.
And I'm a testament to that, because you shared that with me, and I absolutely agree. And I feel what happens when you do that is that you tell them that you're listening.
Yes,
and
exactly.
All people want, the connections happen when you share with that person that, yes, I am listening to what you are doing.
I see you.
I see you. This is how I see you. Don't just tell them that I see you and you're doing great. That's more on the shallow side. Tell them the specifics. Hey, I saw you do this at this event, and I think like you do so well with this. And yeah, you're right. This
and I'm
is an advice.
inspired by you.
And I'm
because
inspired by
so
this.
many times happens that I feel we colleagues talks privately about others, and we say so many wonderful things, but sometimes we forget to tell them.
We have to. We're in a complex society where, for some reason, we feel like if I tell this to you, it's because I envy you
Or
some
you,
weird
or
thing.
like,
And
yeah,
that's not. That's
or
not
sometimes
it.
I feel like we just forget, like we go to a show, we finish the show, we leave, and like we continue with our life.
Oh, because we keep stuck in our own heads is what
Exactly,
happens. And we
exactly.
forget to, like you said,
Share
keep
it.
building, being a community member. Be a community member.
Share it.
Great advice, Val.
Share it. Yeah, share it.
From
Tell
your
your
inner-
people, like, and this is something that I put in practice in my events, and I did it now in the recent one. Like, while people were taking the break, I was highlighting members of the community. I was highlighting in the microphone the vendors, and how do I feel it's the legacy of that person in our community, right? And another thing that helps me out with that sense of community when I create the events, right? I'm not thinking that my event is going to be unique and different and one of a kind. Yes, I want to create that, okay? And I want to make sure my branding is one of a kind, so the event can actually have more recognition, right? Could be different. Recognition, I mean, is easy to recognize. I don't want people to get lost. That's why a word like Lebanese Love Affair, like there's no other events that have similar names. Like it's like, okay, the Love Affair is this one, and the heart is there, and like it's clear. But when I think about my event, I also position my event in service to the other events in my community. So I never did competitions in the Love Affair because I wanted the Love Affair to be the intensive that inspired dancers to go and compete in River City Racks and in Orlando Belly Dance Convention. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
I still think, like, in the logistic of my event, if people want to come to my event, it's because I want them to be so excited to dance and work and train that they want to go to River City Rocks and perform and get that crown on stage.
Yes, you're also thinking of the bigger picture.
And the bigger picture, yes.
Yeah.
And
that goes back to when you mentioned earlier where you don't need to follow a certain structure of somebody else's event. You need to make sure you know who you are, what you like, and what you are bringing to the table.
To the table, yeah. And like when you do production, I think that it's easy for producers to over focus in the little world of the production that they're creating without really thinking in a bigger picture that your event can also create a different type of impact and also help other events, and it's still connected to other events. And I say this because the past years I've been going to Florida and I see the same people in all the events. We are so strong. We like keep. Thank you. So the last events that I've been going in Florida, I still see the same people. You still see the same performers on stage, right? Where you're gonna see this performer performing in like the 3 shows that are happening. So we're catering to the same people. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind, that you're part of a community when you're producing an event, and that the community is the most important thing when you're producing. It's not your solo act. And
I think this was a fantastic conversation. Yeah, thank you, Val.
thank
You have a lot of.
I was so excited to share this.
It's you have a lot of experience and information, and I know we have talked a lot about that producing. I'm still learning. I still learn a lot from you. I feel like after my rebirth, it has been a lot of growth very quickly because I've collaborated with you and more of my community. And I feel a lot of what you talked about in production in this podcast, in this conversation, overlaps with a lot of the other conversations that we're having in this season's podcast season. And I think that this was a really good conversation. I hope that our listeners kind of get a sense of an unveiling from the production phase and what we have to go through, what we do go through, because it is important. Or maybe there's sponsors out there that don't know anything about the belly dance industry, and this is a little bit of an unveiling for them too. Who knows? I know we're very niched in belly dance, but it's a hope and a wish that someone outside of our world might hear a conversation like this and feel like, oh man, okay, I want to be a part of what they're doing. And then the last thing that I want to say is that I'm really happy and excited that Belly Dance Stories gives us these endless opportunities to explore our belly dance world in more ways than we initially thought of. Because for me, in my personal little journey that I'm going through with Belly Dance Stories and with you, every day is an open door to something completely new that I didn't think we could pivot to. But that's why I like these surprises. So thank you for this unveiling of production. And I hope that this was informative and educational to whoever's listening out there, and it gave them a sense of energy and spark. So if you guys have any questions at all, if you have more questions about producing or whatever the case is, you can email us at bellydancestories@gmail.com or reach out to us through social medias, through Instagram or YouTube.
We're ready to help you out.
We are so ready to help you out and to maybe figure out some ways where you can expand. We're never going to tell you what to do, by the way, but we're always going to try and figure out where you're coming from and then help you get there. So thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Valerie, so much for your information.